Welcome to the MAP Grant Follow-Up Process webinar. In this webinar, we will be going through best practices on how to fill out your follow-up forms to ensure that your organization can receive the maximum funding possible. On this slide, you'll see the overall MAP Grant process. We are here in the green square, webinars and support. Next is the September 30th follow-up deadline. And finally, on December 15th, checks are mailed. You can request to receive payment prior to December 15th, but it is important to note that you will not be eligible for oversubmission funding, which will be discussed later on in this webinar. Here you will see two types of follow-up forms, one for population-based funding and one for special projects. It is important that you fill out these forms in full and attach all the receipts for the listed expenses. These forms are emailed out to your organization and posted on the SSA website. It is also important to refer back to your approval letter when completing your follow-up. On this example letter, $750 is the minimum population-based funding amount that this organization is eligible to receive. We say minimum amount as when organizations do not follow up or do not expend the entire minimum approval amount, this is where funding is reallocated, and therefore this amount may increase. At the top here, you will see eligible population-based funding projects. These are the areas in which this organization can spend the $750 and which they can submit receipts. If they spend more than the $750 in these areas, they would want to submit all the receipts in case more funding becomes available. Projects not in these areas were not in the application and therefore will not be approved. Below is the special project funding. The amount here will not change unless they spend less than the approval amount. Just like with population-based funding, only the approved project is eligible. In this case, a soccer festival in the park. The most common mistakes that we see when filling out the follow-up form are not completing the forms in full. It's important that you complete the forms in full or else they will be emailed back to your organization. Submitting receipts in the wrong calendar year. Example, submitting 2017 receipts in 2018. Receipts from previous years will not be accepted. Only receipts from the current calendar year are eligible. Submitting items in the follow-up that weren't approved in the application. Submitting ineligible receipts or not submitting receipts at all. Not taking into consideration oversubmission funding when completing your follow-up. There's a potential that you could receive more than that minimum approval amount. And not requesting an extension after the follow-up deadline. Or if you need an extension, it is important that you request it before September 30th deadline. Extensions requested after this date will not be granted. Receipts. Eligible receipts should at a minimum include the name of the recipient, which would be your organization, a description of the goods or services provided for the payment. It must include the amount of the payment, include the date that the goods and services were purchased, and it must be in this MAP grant year. Include third-party verification. That includes the supplier logo on invoice, signature of the recipient on an expense claim, etc. This is a list of ineligible expenditures. These expenditures would not have been approved on your application and are not eligible to be submitted on the follow-up. General operating costs, which include administrative costs, facility rentals, referee game fees, etc. Any construction, upgrading, maintenance, or operating costs of facilities. Expenditures for which other grant dollars have been used. Cash prizes, social events, alcoholic beverages, research projects or feasibility studies, out-of-province travel, provincial or university team expenses, wages, which include referee and referee mentor fees and any honorariums for staff, debt repayment, and other expenses as deemed ineligible by the SSA. A little bit more on oversubmission funding. So again, oversubmission funding is only available for population-based funding. Often when member organizations do not follow up or follow up for less than their minimum approvals, funds become available, and these funds are allocated to population-based funding. We recommend you submit all receipts for the approved projects in your approval letter, even if they are well above your minimum approval amount. Payment. Checks will be mailed out with a final payment letter on December 15th. Any ineligible expenses will be listed in the letter if necessary. You can request earlier payment. Again, however, you will not be eligible for oversubmission. Personalized support. We are available to offer tailored support to your organization, and we can provide suggestions and advice to you as you contact us. If you submit the application in advance of the deadline, at least by a week, we can review the application and provide feedback. We cannot provide feedback if submitted after the deadline. Thank you for attending the MAP Grant webinar. Please contact us if you have any questions.